Let's talk about Hebrew vowels. So, when most of us learn Hebrew, we learn the vowels so that we can pronounce the words, so that we know when to say ah, or e, or o, or a. Interestingly, modern Hebrew does not use the vowels. Instead, some consonants have been added in to give us a little bit of information about what vowels may be intended. And also, there are so many other contextual clues with modern Hebrew that it's really not necessary. With biblical Hebrew, the vowels are really important. Biblical Hebrew as a text that's frozen in time and as a language that is frozen in time means that we need every clue that we can possibly get to interpret the text and to try to determine what is going on in these texts. And so for a long time, the Torah texts, all the Bible scrolls, were transmitted only with the consonants, and we'll see more about this. And it was only the Masoretes between 600 and 1000 CE who engaged in an activity of adding vowels to the consonantal text, and they also added the trope marks, what we also call in Hebrew ta'amim, or accent marks. So between the vowels and the accent marks, we get a lot of information that would otherwise be ambiguous if we had just the consonantal text. So in this unit, we're going to be looking at the different vowels, not just for information about how to pronounce a word, but more importantly, for information about how a word is constructed. So I could take a kuf, a dalid, and a shin, and if I pronounce it kadash, it would mean be holy. If I pronounced those three consonants as kidesh with different vowels, it would mean to sanctify. So the vowels are going to tell us a lot about what words mean, and we'll also be learning about how to recognize
This is
different
one of my
vowel
favorite
patterns
texts for
and how they can clue
illustrating
into
the
whether we're
power
looking at
of
nouns
vowels
or verbs
and
or
why
other
they are so
speech.
important in proper interpretation of biblical texts. So we have an excerpt here from near the beginning of the Ten Commandments from Exodus 20, which is again repeated with some variation in Deuteronomy 5. So let's begin with the English first. You shall not make for yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. And this is the part that I want to focus on again. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing children for the iniquity of parents to the third and the fourth generations of those who reject me. And then, of course, it continues with God loving to the thousandth generation those who follow God. So verse 5 is almost always translated in this same way. You can look at different Bible translations and you're bound to see something very, very close to, you shall not bow down to them or worship them. Here's the thing, worship them is a mistranslation. So let's look at the Hebrew for a second. So verse 5 in the Hebrew, lo, not, do not, tishtachaveh lahem, do not bow down to them, velo, and do not, and this is the word that's usually translated as do not worship them. The mem at the very end here is for them. So this is assumed to be from ayin vet dalid, avad la'avod, to work in modern Hebrew, but in biblical Hebrew it has more of a sense of to serve God or to worship. And so when people translate worship, they are assuming a different vowel pattern under this word. But the vowel pattern here indicates to us that we should pronounce this word not ta'avdem, but rather to'avdem. And that this is not a regular kal binyan. We'll get to binyanim, but it's not the basic form, which means to worship. This is rather in what we call the hofal or hufal binyan. And when this root appears in the hofal binyan, it does not mean do not worship them. It means do not be enticed or seduced into worshiping them. And I think the difference here is important